This is deep dish, right?
Yeah, but let's get deep.
So I'm going deep on both sides.
I'm gonna say Pastor Davie Tucker, Davie Tucker the organizer, Davie Tucker the man of God, Davie Tucker the human being, Davie Tucker the Nashville native from Cheatham. Welcome to the platform.
I am glad to finally be here, Jerome. Glad.
Yeah, I'm glad to finally have you here. We ain't gonna talk about.
No, please don't.
We ain't gonna expose you.
Please don't.
on the weight.
Because I'm tender at it.
But I'm excited for this conversation. And before we get off, I just want to go ahead and give you your flowers for just the work and the commitment that you've made to just social justice, racial reckoning, calling out things, saying what most people won't say in public spaces, and then again just doing the work on many levels and being a mentor and talking to people like myself whenever you're out and about and you just want, hey David, can I talk to you about this, and giving us and me and others just your genuine, authentic feedback, whether we like it or not, and really being intentional about reaching back and working with younger folks in community as well as seasoned folks. So flowers, a whole bouquet of them. Thank you. Continue doing the work, but it's not too many like you, especially I would say being a younger person that I know that I can come to and just call on the phone and say, hey, David, look, I got this going on, and you listen and be understanding and also taking consideration like, hey, man, this is a different time, but this is how you could potentially navigate this. So I don't know if people tell you that enough, but I'm telling you that today on air, on camera, so people know, and hopefully more people will do it whenever come across you and just give you a flower. So flowers given to you.
I appreciate that. I'm trying to get better with accepting compliments.
Yeah.
Because we don't do this for this.
Right.
But I'm only doing what was done for me.
Yeah.
And if I could take this moment of privilege behind your comment, Avi Poster, a local Jewish activist, mentor, passed on yesterday. And
I did not know that.
I just found out this morning, and what you said to me, he's one of the people, he's one of 3 men in this world that we greet by kissing.
Wow.
And Avi has been a relentless, compassionate, resolute voice for justice in this city, who now rests with the ancestors. And,
wow. I was just talking about him 2 days ago. And yesterday, guess what? I just did a whole episode on Black and Jewish relations.
Wow.
And you know what's coming up? That I know Ivy helped bring here to Nashville? The Seder.
Yeah.
Wow.
Again, man, when I heard you saying what you were saying to me, I was overwhelmed because I was thinking about Ivy, that he picked me.
Wow.
A long time ago. He picked me. I can remember the first time this short white man grabbed my face with his hands and kissed me on my damn jaw. And it didn't feel bad.
Yeah.
Now, the whole act and all of that was a little bit dissettling.
Right. Yeah.
And from then on, that was our thing.
Yeah.
And
wow.
He'd been sick a while. We thought he got out. And I got word. So my response to what you said to me is because of people like him, who've now gone to be with the elders.
Yeah.
People who still here like Tex Thomas.
Yeah.
And I got to give a shout out for Deacon Richard Holder, who is a person who is near and dear to me
Right.
that has taught me in ways and folks don't even know his name. But them are the three men that our greeting and ending is with a kiss.
Dang. Yeah, the community as a whole lost somebody special, but I know the Jewish community is really feeling that. And it just, that's so ironic, because literally I'm trying to figure out ways personally to learn, but also bridging that coalition again around Black and Jewish relations, because just of what has happened currently, but also understanding the allyship coalition in history between the two groups here in the United States, and to have Avi lost right when they're finna do the Seder next month. Man, that's rest in power, Avi. Dang. Ashe for sure. Well, I want to continue on your journey and talk about like the catalyst of how Davie Tucker became Davie Tucker today. You can give us the condensed version, and what led you into the work that you're doing.
I was raised, when I first had idea of my ontological understanding was as a kid living in Edge Hill.
Okay.
We moved from there to Cheatham.
Okay.
My mother raised 4 kids. I'm second in that line of 4 kids. And she worked hard for us with the idea that we were not poor, but we were broke. And she always had an adage that God's gonna make a way.
Yeah.
And that angered me, because from where I sit, God wasn't doing shit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got older and started experiencing the world, because I was raised in a black bubble.
Yeah.
And the white folk that I was raised up around, we were in the same boat. So this idea of racism was secret from me until I got on into my teen years and found it out pretty quickly. So I've had multiple incidences.
Yeah.
But again, it gets back to my mother and what she instilled in us about who we were.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that it was a thing
Yeah.
until I needed a thing.
Right.
And there it was. I'm from here, born here. I went in the Marine Corps, spent about 9 years. I was a recruiter here, came out, went to work at the Sheriff's Department. And it was my experience in the Marine Corps and then on into the Sheriff's Department that really made and laid bare to me this idea of inequity and the lack of justice.
Right.
And it was even in the Marine Corps, a sergeant major called me a boy. And that was supposed to be okay.
Yeah.
And that actually resulted in me, who had been meritoriously promoted all the way to E5 and had to wait for years to get E6. And me confronting him on calling me a boy took all of that away.
Wow.
And even coming here to a jail and went to work, because when you got out of the military back then, from where I was from, a job with benefits was a thing.
Yeah.
Even on the whole macking piece,
Yeah.
on the pimping piece.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
if you had a job with benefits,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a policeman, didn't want to be a fireman, didn't want to work at the post office,
Right.
didn't really want to work at the jail, but I ended up there.
Okay.
And the jail was under a federal court order for unconstitutional conditions.
Okay.
Under where the old where the new Justice Center is,
Okay.
it basically sits on the spot where the old one was.
Okay, got it.
Under James Robinson Parkway is a tunnel that runs the length from the middle of the courthouse to the middle of the Justice Center. At one time, there were 200 people being housed in that tunnel
Wow.
with no bathroom, no ventilation, no food,
Inhumane conditions.
totally inhumane,
Wow.
smelled horrible. This was in the day when smoking was used to calm people down.
What years we talking?
We're talking 86,
86, okay.
87, 88,
Okay.
and going to work in that condition, and everybody around me didn't have the horror I had
Yeah.
about this. And with that was the brutality that was coming from police as they arrested people and brought them to jail.
All right.
There was a process that had to happen where it was called a door of no return at that point. It's where the police department stopped and the sheriff's department started.
Okay.
And that's where every person who got picked up by the police was transferred. And the sheriff's department had to ask the question, are you sick or injured, or do you need to go to the hospital?
All right.
And what bad officers would do is they would threaten them. If you make me take you to the hospital, you're gonna pay for that.
Yeah.
To where sometimes you had to interpret individuals' eyes.
Yeah.
One night I had an individual obviously had been beat up. He's
Right.
still bleeding. And I'm asking him the question, and he's looking at me, and I know he's not gonna answer.
Right.
So I engaged the officer. And the officer talked crazy, and that ended up to become a physical altercation
Wow.
in the Criminal Justice Center between me and a police officer. And as time went on, it just grew into bigger things.
Yeah.
But I can remember as a kid, I never liked a bully.
Yeah.
I'm 6'4",
Yeah.
300 pounds. I was always big, but I did not like bullies.
Yeah.
And as I've grown, I still don't like bullies.
Yeah.
And systems and people who operate in them are bullies.
When we bring up this word justice, what does that mean to you? Because I think it's a very loosely used term now.
It is.
And I think it can mean different things to different people. And so what would be your definition of justice?
You know, I've had to hone that over time. Justice for me is not taking for yourself what you would deny somebody else. With a period.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Have we ever, make sure I ask this question in a clarifying way. Have we ever seen justice in this country? Do we even know what that looks like? Do we know what that means as a whole, and even more specifically as black people, as black men?
There are glimpses,
Okay.
and they show up in spite of. So let me contextualize it. But as a whole, no. To be just requires acknowledgement. Because if we can't say the same thing,
Right.
then there can be no forgiveness.
Right.
There can be no, even well on down the line is this idea of reconciliation.
Right.
But if there can be no acknowledgement, then there can be no real justice. And again, taking for yourself
Yeah.
what you would deny someone else.
Right.
I use this all the time. If you don't live little justice, you don't understand big justice. If you're not cautious around how you treat people,
Right.
just in little justice,
Right.
the common humanity that exists between us,
Right.
the respect of other persons, the acknowledgement of the privilege you may hold over the individual that you're confronting.
Right.
When you get down to the black man piece, no. But that's okay,
Yeah.
because we're the first man.
Right.
If you look at the Abrahamic religions,
Right.
we're the first man. The first man had to look like us.
Right.
And I think that that's what we have to offer the world.
Right.
I believe black men hold the redemption for the world.
What does that mean?
That means that we have the sauce
Yeah.
just in the whole creative process.
Yeah.
We the first man.
Yeah.
So we have the ability, when we understand what it means to give ourselves to something bigger than us.
Yeah.
Now, I'm Baptist, but I was African first.
Right.
And in African spirituality, there's a saying that the sum total of a man is in his veneration of the elders and the preparation he makes for the yet unborn. And so, regardless of how I'm situated,
Right.
do I respect those who come before me?
Right.
And do I live in a way that's going to make it better for those who are not even here yet?
Right. So to put it plainly right now, what the hell is going on in Nashville these days? Policing, politics, socially, economics, unhoused, education. Well, we're going to dig into all of this piece by piece, but just to get straight into it, what the hell is going on in our city that we're both from? We're both seeing it. You've seen it drastically change way longer than I have, just due to life experience, but seeing it even more drastically change, especially from an economic standpoint, and it benefiting others and not benefiting some, but also that equity piece. That tends to get lost, so people tend not to care about that. And then you have people that come here and don't understand the history, don't understand the historical neglect that has happened in so many of our communities. What's your thoughts, initial thoughts on that?
I'm going to use a quote I heard from Ralph Schultz, who is the president of the Chamber of Commerce. He said this 3 years ago around a question about the prosperity that was going on in Nashville. And somewhere in his opining on that issue, he said that that there was poor penetration of the prosperity. And I've been harping that ever since.
Poor
penetration means that there's great prosperity,
Right.
but it has poor penetration, much like runoff when it rains so fast
Right.
that the ground can't soak it all up
Right.
because it's saturated. So it may not replenish the aquifer.
Right.
And so that's what I see here is poor penetration of these resources, and those who are allowed into the game are just getting drunk on their excess.
Do we see real equity being created with all of this growth, or will it just be what it is?
Again,
And what is our social responsibility to combating that?
Again, it gets back to if we can't agree on what to call a thing,
Right.
if white folk understand that when we say white supremacy, it's not you, you were born into it.
Right.
No, you did not own slaves, but you benefit from how this system has been set up.
Right.
And if we can't say the same thing on that, then we don't see the same nuances in that. Like when people say they want to make education the silver bullet.
Right.
We know in reality that I know individuals with college degrees
Right.
who can't get jobs,
Right.
or they get jobs that if they knew that that was what they was going to have to settle on, they might have went into pipe fitting because it pays more.
Right.
So we have to acknowledge and call this thing the same thing.
Right.
And we're not doing that. I use this as another example. When I bought my son his first car, it was a hoopty, a real
Right.
hoopty, paid $300. And this idea of checking the oil and the water was very, very serious.
Right.
So if you drive a car and it's ticking,
Right.
and you keep driving it, you keep driving it, now it's knocking.
Right.
You keep driving it, and then suddenly the engine locks up. The cost of repair is greater because of your neglect.
Right.
And that's where we are.
Right.
We've been historically neglected. So now you just want to change the oil,
Right.
but it needs a new engine.
Right.
So you'll change the oil, but it don't address the fact
Right.
that your historic inability or your historic negligence
Yeah. They had the ability.
creates a greater cost of repair.
So the oil change it's not
No.
gonna do anything.
But that's
at
all
this
you
point.
want to do.
Yeah.
Or you want to rebuild it. It already got 200,000 miles on it.
Right.
You don't want to bear the cost of replacing it.
Right.
And that's what's wrong now in Nashville, is we still want to just change the oil,
Right.
but nobody wants to do and pay the cost, once you acknowledge it,
Right.
to repair it.
We are a mayor-heavy-led city. Right. Our mayor has a lot of power. We're in a mayoral campaign year. We may have a new mayor. He or she will be in that position for 4 years for the first time. What would you say to our prospective new mayor around preservation of Nashville, but also rebuilding just new engines or replacing, new engines in communities that we know that need to be replaced, and addressing the neglect that has historically been there in years? Because I think that's going to be a huge piece for a community to want to be aware about, and how our mayor is going to do that if they're going to continue to lead another 4 years or an initial 4 years at this point with the natural growth.
Unfortunately, I think we're all susceptible at various levels to groupthink. So
Yeah.
what we do here locally, we see on a greater degree statewide, and we see on a greater degree nationally.
Right.
This failure to acknowledge how America came to be. So to a new mayor, I would say you need courage. More than anything else, you're gonna need courage, because it's hard to do the right thing when there is pressure for you to do the same thing. While I applaud the current administration for what is called historic contributions
Right.
to affordable housing,
Right. Education. Other things. Yep.
I applaud that, 50 million. But the reality is it needed 500 million to be able to repair.
Right.
what has been allowed to already happen.
Right.
Most housing advocates in the city would tell you the horn started blowing 15 years ago when the people at the lowest social economic level started the wholesale taking of their property.
Yeah.
Nobody did nothing.
Right.
It didn't change until they came for the middle class.
Exactly.
But the momentum behind the engine then had picked up too much steam. So it rolled over them
Right.
also.
Right.
So suddenly bastions of black middle class life,
Right.
like out West Hamilton and places like that,
Yeah.
that had long been looked over by everybody else. But we were able to have a 2,000 square foot house,
Right.
own an acre lot,
Right.
have a barbecue,
Right.
raise our families, and then our kids come and ultimately leave those houses to our children.
Right.
Now they became desirable. And this troubles folk who don't want to listen,
Yeah.
but it's interesting that the valuation of a piece of property changes just because a white person moves in next door.
Yeah.
There is nothing materially has happened. There's not been a remodeling because what happens, and it is becoming less noticeable, but it doesn't mean that it's still not there, is that when white people move in, they bring the weight of the government with them. So suddenly the alley that's been gravel for 40 years gets paved.
Right.
And now there's street lights in there.
Right.
The group that sat on the corner and been on the corner,
Right.
that we happen to know them all because they grew up before they took their seat on the corner,
Right.
who were no threat to us,
Right.
but now they're uncomfortable to somebody else, they disappear.
Yeah.
Where they go? Now, I was raised in Cheatham, and so Salem Town,
You right?
I knew something had changed 10, 12 years ago. Went home, told my wife, coming up out of Cheatham, crossing over Rosa Parks, and there is a young white woman walking a lap dog with headphones on,
Yep.
walking down past where the bistro was.
Yep.
And anybody from here knew that if you want to pick up some weed, right on that corner there was where that would happen.
Right. Yep.
Something happened. Something happened. So I don't think you can put the genie back in the bottle. Some places have been irreparably damaged.
Right.
When you look at, and several photographers have captured the lack of symmetry when you have a tall and skinny
Yeah.
beside a regular 1,100 square foot house. But think about this. Depending on what block you live on, and whether it's on the east or the west side, that building took the sun away from you and your house.
Yep.
That the sun, for half of the day, no longer shines on your house.
Right.
And I say that in a systemic way
Yeah.
of, that means that when it does snow, the snow between me and that house is the last to melt.
Right.
Snow gone everywhere else,
Right.
but down the side of my house.
Right. Or if you're trying to grow something.
If I'm trying, that it will no longer grow on that side of my house.
From a community standpoint, this is a two-part question. Those that have been here and those that are in this work, or even might want to get involved in this work, how do we combat these things? What can we do? And secondly, those that are moving here, going into these communities and not knowing the history, not understanding what damage they're doing as gentrifiers. What role can they play in becoming allies and using those resources that they bring in with them to be, community-oriented gentrifiers?
Okay, I would not burden them with that.
Okay.
I would back up a step and say that the stewards of our city,
Okay.
those in policy seats, made decisions that created the space for those to come in from out of town.
Okay.
So I think it's unfair to put some requirement upon a person who came and bought a piece of property,
Right.
not being from there, and now suddenly I come responsible for whatever was wrong before I got here.
Right.
The city
Okay.
had a duty and a responsibility that it failed in.
Right.
Because if you look at it, one of my great examples about Nashville is, you ever driven through the small area of Berry Hill?
Yeah.
You see how those old little 900 square foot houses are still over there like that?
Yep. They got their own police and everything over there.
You can't run in there and do that.
Yep.
There are other places in Nashville that you can't run in and do that.
Right.
But there are places, those that have been redlined before,
Right.
those that have been denied access to capital before, those areas that the city collective, the city power structure did not value.
Right.
They were allowed to be pillaged,
Interstate driven through.
all of that,
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
And again, that's our fault. I say our fault as a city for not taking those steps, even when one argues about property rights and all that. No, there's deed restrictions on all
Right.
manner of stuff.
Right.
So when you allow someone to come in and irreparably change a neighborhood, some people who live in gentrifying neighborhoods, their property value goes up only because those tall and skinnies are there, but they've not done any significant
Right.
repair or remodeling on their house, so they're already affected by that valuation.
Right.
That's not right.
Exactly.
That's not right.
Exactly.
I mean, because 10 years ago, they had been victims of predatory lending,
Right.
but that house wasn't worth no more than 75. Now somebody will give you 200 just to bulldoze it over.
Right. Right.
And now I'm paying taxes on 200,
Right.
but it's still that $75,000 house.
Right. And my income hasn't went up
At all.
significantly or at all.
Yeah.
In those 10 years.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that is a travesty. And again, I have a saying, everything legal ain't right.
I want to touch on this other aspect of who you are in with faith and also social justice. As a younger person, I wasn't here with civil rights and when we seen where black churches was a mecca for a lot of those things, especially here in the South, right? I haven't seen that in that type of way in my lifetime. And there's always conversation and what is the church doing for our communities, especially black communities, right? Are they pacifying issues and stopping people from wanting to fight back, wanting to be radical? Should they be doing more? Being a pastor, but also being in social work, but being very outspoken. not your typical pastor, I would say, from what I've seen, on speaking on social justice issue, racial issues. what are your thoughts on what you've seen in your lens from some of your other constituents in that space of faith and social justice, speaking on it or not speaking on it?
That's a whole lot. So you probably have to cut me off on this.
Unpack that a little bit for us.
Okay, you cut me off when you say
okay.
I've said too much. If you check the history of black church history from historians, many black churches now are victims of revisionist history.
Okay.
At its peak, historians say it was only 25% of the black church that was actively involved in the social justice movement.
Okay.
So there's never been
a majority
of the black church. And that's several reasons. Some out of just fear of survival,
right,
but others out of a perversion of the faith. Historically, somewhere in there, Jesus became white,
right,
with smooth shoulders, blue eyes, and always holding a baby lamb
yeah,
with a non-masculine little setback.
yeah,
But when you look at Jesus of Nazareth, who turned the tables over in the temple, who had the ability to understand the consequence of being a disruptor to the status quo, that we say it and it's been nuanced. We say, Jesus died for my sins, but Jesus died because of our sin. And there was a collusion of religion and government.
yeah,
And again, this is not anti-Semitic. And,
Right.
and then I have to say that because we want to jump on the Jews. No,
Right.
this is not about that. In a real way, there have always been people of faith who can profit from how things are.
right,
But for me, faith is about the isness and the altness. And so when we participate in this,
right,
we create a theology for this,
right,
which has now, as it matures, it's always been here growing up.
right,
It shows up as white evangelical nationalism,
right,
where Jesus now wears a flak jacket and carries an AR-15.
yeah, patriotic.
Yeah, yeah, and that the flag now is the bearer under this idea that God bless America with a period is to say God bless America and nobody else. And so the black church has to make its own decision over this idea that God is more concerned about my soul than my body,
Right,
but God made this body to hold my soul.
right,
And everything that happens to me in life
right,
is born on our bodies. But God is unconcerned
right,
about that body. I think that's a fallacy. I think it's a perversion. And I think it's the presence of evil that has allowed this to happen. Right here in our very own city, people don't talk about it much. National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated is over adjacent to American Baptist College.
okay,
Doing a convention, I forget which year, but it's been recorded in the history. They refused to let Martin Luther King, whose church was a member,
right,
speak from the floor. They kicked him out of the National Baptist Convention, which is the largest
right,
black Christian church convention in the
Right.
country.
right,
Because his words were too heavy
right,
for how we have morphed this idea of our faith has turned into a capitalistic concern. And until we understand that if whatever you desire
Right.
is no bigger than you, don't pull the divine in on that.
Let's talk about that capitalism and social justice. Commercializing of social justice, profiting off of social justice. We talked a little bit about this off camera, but I was like, I don't believe in the broke organizer, because I understand organizers are people. They need housing, they need food, they have families, they have husbands and wives, partners, they have kids. So I believe they should be well funded to be able to do the work that they do. However, there are some people out there, some of them are corporations, some of them are individuals, who just use the moment, the spotlight, to make a dollar, hundreds of thousands of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars. What advice, I would say that, what advice would you give, or words would you give, or thoughts would you give around somebody who wants to do this work, right? But also doesn't want to financially struggle their entire tenure in doing the work. And how the organizations as well make it about community and keep it grounded in community, but also understand, like, we need funds to do the work that we do. But don't want to be wrapped up and get caught up in capitalism, which is very easy to do in the United States, because that is the system that is currently driving everything, and which causes division, which causes to have that dog eat dog, let me get mine. If I get the money, it'll solve all my problems, whether it's racially, whether it's a gender, sexuality problem, whatever it may be. If I can get the green, then I could be accepted probably, and that can take on a new identity for me.
Go get a real job and don't do this. I think they're incompatible. It's a paradox.
Yeah.
It's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
And just because you put it together,
Yeah.
don't mean it needs to be together.
Right.
Oil and vinegar as a salad dressing has to be shaken up. And it doesn't stay together long.
Right.
It will never work. And I say that because new organizers and advocates think they have an answer, and they think that the 400 years that it has taken to concretize this system
Yeah.
can be tore down in the 3 years after they just showed up. And so they get frustrated.
Right.
They end up compromising themselves. So I say, if you're gonna do this, because see, once you see this, you can't unsee this.
Right.
But then you gotta live in love too.
Right.
So find a way that you're gonna keep your lights on, and then but you gotta live in love.
Right.
That's really what gives the value to
Right.
it. You gotta raise a family. You need to be able to have a good time. You need to be able to unplug from this.
Right.
Get you a way that you never have to compromise yourself. If I can quote Tex Thomas here, he says, everybody knows what your propensity is,
Yeah.
and they're gonna offer you that.
Yeah.
And once you take whatever that is,
They got you.
they take your most important thing, and that's your voice.
Yep.
And then we want to justify, well, I gotta live, but you're doing it all wrong.
Right.
Do what you gotta do to make it, and if you don't have time right now,
Right.
you ain't got time right now.
That brings up this question right here on why, especially black folks, but just any marginalized people, disenfranchised people, especially black folks, we be on these jobs. We have these employers that do us wrong. Microaggressions, overtly, covertly, and we stay silent because of the finances. I got this $40,000 job, $50,000, maybe $60,000, even $70,000. And they're gonna see how much they can push you. How much is that paycheck really work to you. Hey, I need you to, cut your dreads a little bit, Hey, your beard is, kind of scruffy because you know, your hair, could you do something with that? Your clothes, or how you talking? Those little subtle things to really see if you're going to push back or not. And many black folks don't because of those financial, I won't even say financial, comfortability, I would say.
Well, I'll push you a little bit.
Push me.
We've already said that this is a jacked up system.
Yeah.
That we were born into. Whatever the cosmic lotto is that
Right.
determines what side we come out on,
Right.
we fall into a system that predates us.
Right.
You cannot flourish until you're able to survive. And for many times, what I see in a lot of young activists, they still living in their mama's house.
Yeah.
They still in the basement. They ain't got no car note. They don't have no house note.
Right.
They don't have no children
No responsibilities outside
who are
of themselves.
depending on them. I applaud the folk who say, I might not get in the game,
Right.
but I'm gonna make sure Junior got a chance
Right.
of getting in the game.
Right.
Cause I'm gonna eat this shit. And I'm gonna go back home. And that's gonna let me tell Junior, you need to get your ass in school. I will kill you.
Yeah.
Cause I eat shit every day
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Vicariously,
Yeah.
my liberation is tied up in others. So I don't fault them. Everybody has to make the decision.
Right.
Again, I was told by another individual, because I was hard on them,
Yeah.
who come up short when somebody need to say something. Said, Tuck, if liberation ever comes, true liberation, you got to bring them niggas with you too.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is gonna be hard. Which is.
But liberation ain't happen.
Right. Liberation ain't happen. Yeah.
But if liberation happened,
You gotta bring them with you.
that is a burden that I still resent to this day.
Yeah.
So now you have others that don't risk because they don't want to risk.
Yeah.
And because they're not going to risk.
Right.
But you have some who are just trying to survive
Yeah.
because they know
Yeah.
that this is a long
Yeah.
struggle. And I believe too, like King,
Yeah.
that the moral arc of the universe does bend toward, but we got to have folk that put
Right.
sustained
Right.
pressure.
Yeah.
If you look at South and Central America's fight with colonialism and Catholicism, that's where we get the word guerrilla from.
Yep.
We know that the cumbersomeness of a big system
Yeah.
is like David and Goliath. I don't need to have 400,000 armed troops
Yeah.
to disrupt this system.
Nah.
I need some guerrillas,
Yeah. Just a few of them.
just a few of them, real guerrilla warriors
Yep.
who can clog up. You can take a 600 horsepower engine, brand new, and that takes 24 gallons of gas. You give me a quart of the right stuff,
Yeah.
a quart,
Yep.
which can be concealed. It ain't me coming up with 24 gallons,
Gallons, right.
a quart. Shut that whole system down. So, but I think the problem has been, I call it the Stephen complex.
Okay.
And that's from my favorite movie, Django,
Okay.
that I wish was a movie when I was a kid. I wish my life trajectory would have been different
Yeah.
if Django came out when I was a kid.
Django's a powerful one.
When that movie's going off and Django that come back, got his woman, put on Candy's clothes,
Yep.
smoking out of his cigarette holder
Right.
with his riding boots on, lighting his house, lighting the wick that's gonna blow up his house after he done shot Stephen, the character played by Samuel L. Jackson. After he shot him in the leg, the last words you hear for the house blow up is Stephen saying, "This always gonna be Candyland." Unfortunately, we got Negroes who believe this always gonna be Candyland. And so they capitulate.
Right.
I come out of the generation, not solidly, it's primarily the generation before mine, but I caught the end of that assimilation generation. That I gotta give up my blackness. I gotta give up. I gotta conform to be able to fit in. And so, but even them, they trying to live.
Yeah.
They trying to survive.
And that conformity is gonna, in my personal experience, that pressure of conformity has come from people that look like me.
Yeah, but see, now we're at a place where we know that that's untenable. But if you follow through history, there were always those in each generation that was reminding us of that. While you had the early Du Bois, you also had the Marcus Garveys. You also had even the Daddy Graces. Who were the alternative voice. Because that's what we're asking for is a alternative reality. It's not this one. Because if you just talk to, and that's why, and I know I'm jumping here, but one thing that a lot of the younger organizers are students of history. If they were students of history,
gotta read.
they would come to understand that this system does not work with everybody on the top.
Right.
Just a basic study of the theories of economics, the supply and demand, and those type principles says everybody can get rich.
Exactly.
Everybody won't get rich, or this system cannot support itself. There's a weird, sick algorithm that says that it takes so many poor people to support a rich person. But we've bought into this idea that everybody can get theirs. It's not set up that way. There is a finiteness of this economy. And there are those whose only job is for this system to prevail. Like right now, with the manipulation of interest rates, with globalization and physical policy, it is to allow this system to continue. And I don't care how you twist it. You can go to church and they'll tell you, you can name it and claim it. You can call it and haul it. You can, if you can believe it, you can be it. All that other shit that is not true. And will not happen. How is it individuals who claim to have come up on whatever it is, why is it that they hold in conferences that me and you gotta pay to come to with the promise of coming up? Now the only thing gonna happen is you're gonna pay your registration fee. Now whether you come up or not,
it ain't gonna be determined. It ain't gonna be determined in that conference.
But my justice, again, not taken for yourself, which you would deny somebody else. So those of us who seek to get rich in this work are already hell-bent on not sharing what they are accomplishing now. So it turns into this sick system to where we become co-opted
Right.
into the system.
Right.
Ministry for me, for the church, is akin to burning the candle on both ends.
Okay.
Yeah, you feed children,
Right.
but when that's all you do, you support a bad system.
Right.
Just as you're feeding children because they need to be fed, you equally need to be exerting power and influence to find out why the hell the kids are hungry anyway.
Right. Right. How
But
how can we prevent them from being hungry?
Right. I mean, yeah, I'm going to feed them because
Yeah.
they're children and they need to eat, and everybody
Yeah.
needs to eat, and that has their survival.
Right.
But it ought to be as critically important and for that congregation that feeds kids
Yeah.
to be out there trying to find out why a kid's hungry.
Right.
Because again, that's what got Jesus killed, if you really want to do that. Even when you look at the prophets,
Yeah.
even out of Judaism, that requirement of how you treat your brother says how you treat your brother is the bedrock of the claim to your own righteousness. But see, we can be righteous today and don't even speak to my brother.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
you know, we even got songs, Jesus and Me. You cannot be okay with the divine and be jacked up with the divine's children. But we've created a way where I don't have to be.
Right.
And so, again, the training of ministers,
Yeah.
unfortunately, a great part of the black church is non-connectional, which means that there are no training requirements to be a preacher.
Right.
You just show up one day in church
Right.
and say, something got a hold of me.
Yeah.
And then somebody say, it's the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
And you go up and, who's the Lord?
Right.
Lord, have called me to preach. Now that is somebody who don't want to go to school, has a certain level of charisma,
Yeah.
and suddenly church becomes about them.
Right.
Think about how we have morphed this idea of living righteously in the world to totally focusing on what I do at the church. And I'm only there 2 hours a week.
You know, I think some of that is too, though, is I think we go out in the world and our value is so low. It can be low. But when we come to this church on Sunday, I'm somebody. I have this title. People come to seek some type of information from me. People want me to pray for them. And I think when you oppress people as well, I think that's what carries a lot of that into our church environment for many people. And I say that to say, living abroad, I seen it. When I go into these smaller communities, right? I'm the only American. I'm the only black person. People want me. People feel like I can offer them something that they can't offer themselves, right? When I did Peace Corps, this was a big struggle for people coming back home. They're this person in this micro community. When they come back to the United States, they just a number. It's so global. Everybody's got what you got now, right? Everybody can do what you do. And I think it's similar like that for some of us when we go into our church grounds and we just hold on to that because once we leave on Sunday at 1 or 2 o'clock and go to our job on Monday, we ain't shit.
But see, again, the black church and that history of the black church that keeps me attached to it. There's this mystery that happens that I can't fabricate it.
Yeah.
I don't make it. For me, I remember it as a kid at King Solomon Missionary Baptist Church on 10th Avenue, the pastor Morgan Bath. Used to have radio show Time Now for a Sick Call. As a kid, my mom used to get us, we had to go. And I can remember specifically, we were running on a day that it had been raining. And we had ironed the clothes, and we lived in Cheatham, right there behind on 9th Avenue.
Okay.
And we went over to church, and so we're standing in the lobby, the area they call the vestibule.
Okay.
And the church started a long me to him. And I don't know if you know what a long meter hymn is. It's the black way we take a European church song and slow it down 10, 15 times. Like, and it sounds like doing your vows.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
And then every now and then the guy who is calling the song
Yeah.
will line a line.
Okay.
You know, guide me, O great Jehovah.
Right.
Then the church would,
Guide me. Yeah.
But the mysticism in that for me was everybody knew the song and I didn't know it. Standing there as a 10, 11-year-old
Yeah.
in the vestibule.
Yeah.
Everybody singing a song I don't know.
Yeah.
And it ain't in the songbook.
Yeah. So how did they? Yeah.
Everybody on key, and then all of a sudden a deacon rises up above it. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's mystical to me.
Yeah.
So when black folk came to church, they were reinforced by God
Yeah.
that you are somebody. That the only real power in the world is personal agency. And it's that breath that God put in you.
Yeah.
You always had the ability to exercise choice.
Yeah.
And that is the part that has been perverted. And I offer you two examples of that. When you look at church bombings in the South,
Yeah.
these were often ragtag buildings. Many of them, most of them had no electricity, no PA. But why would you burn that building? You've been kicking these people's ass, raping them, jailing them all week,
Right.
trying to whip them, beat them, rape them into submission. But when them niggas get in that church, they come back out of there
Right.
ready to deal with me next week.
Yeah. Yeah. In spite of.
In spite of.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
See, and I'm not too quick to try to define that.
Yeah. I don't think you can. I don't think you can.
But that's not what we have now in the predominance of the black church. To me, the mere presence of the black church is a statement of resistance. The mere presence of now, black church ain't just a church that got black people.
Right.
We see that in Memphis right now.
Right. Yeah.
The policing system killed them,
Yeah.
and we all put off.
Right.
We all put off because it's black
Right.
officers. No,
Yeah.
that's still the system. What killed them was the policing philosophy
Right.
that they got from the Memphis Police Department.
That is perpetuated and trained every officer the same
And the
way.
same thing happens when we go to certain colleges and institutions to be taught how to be preachers and pastors. And I'm glad I'm a product of American Baptist College, the College of C.T. Vivian,
Right.
Bernard Lafayette, John Lewis,
Right.
because again, I found my voice, my true voice. Now,
Yeah.
my pushback on the system, all that been going on.
Right.
But it wasn't until
With the ABC.
this thing called a calling
Yeah.
that I was still trying to work out that I landed on the campus of ABC.
Polished it. Honed it.
Found it.
Found it.
I've been polishing it and honing it.
Yeah.
Church let me practice every week, but it's in these streets.
Yeah.
It's amongst God's folk.
Yeah.
That when I say God will, because I don't live that shit. It's experiential. I can't claim it. I can't call it.
Right.
I can't make it show up.
Yeah.
But I know that many of the things that people would like to give me credit for,
Yeah.
I can't take it. That's that mysticism.
When you talk about the connection, a lot of it is that unity, right? Do we have unity right now in Nashville? amongst organizations, organizers trying to combat systemic white supremacy? Is there unity? Is there unity between the young and the old? Again, I give you your flowers on intentionally, you personally working with folks, reaching back. But I don't know if that's the standard, you know, from both ends, from young people and older people in this work.
I answered a question a long time ago that most people don't want to deal with. What is enough?
Okay. It's been enough.
Because if you don't understand what is enough for you as it relates to what you desire,
Yeah.
you never have nothing to give.
Yeah.
Once you decide what's enough, then you open up to be able to live in a way that's bigger than you. I've been blessed, I have, but I also been broke. And I'm not rich now.
Yeah.
By no means. But I am so rich in relationships,
Yeah.
in things bigger than me.
Yeah.
And that's what the church forgets. Well, I could go on forever, but we individualize what's always been communal.
Yeah.
Nature is a guide to us that we don't pay attention to. There is a interconnectivity in nature. Things are inextricably linked in nature.
Right.
That we want to jump over all of that. I mean, even in my own Christian understanding, how is it? Everybody know John 3:16, right? You probably know it. What is it?
Yeah. John 3:16, for those who love the
For God
I ain't saying in years. I'm going off a straight muscle memory. What is it? Get started.
For God so loved
the world that He gave His only forgotten Son,
that whosoever believed in Him should
not perish and live everlasting life. And I ain't said that in. Whew.
How is that? Well, let me take you back through that same one. It ain't changed. It's always been there. For God so loved the world, not you,
Right. Yeah.
that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever, not you,
Believed in Him.
but we say that and present that as a personal thing. That ain't personal.
Yeah.
God declared God's love for the world,
Yeah.
not you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you get saved and I don't get saved, God doesn't get what God desires.
Right.
But I get mine.
And that's what capitalism do. I got mine.
And then we add these little words, but that's your anointing. That's your gifting. What God has for you is for you. But the irony of that is, folk could get in church and shout, and the whole church go in, cause Miss Sarah Sue just got a $250,000 house. Won't he do it?
Yes, He will.
Won't he do it?
Yes, He
But
will.
then we all know individuals who live antithetical to anything being greater than them, and they live in a $2 million house.
Right.
What's up with God on these little skimpy ass houses and shit? Or won't he do it? Which creates an unrealistic promise.
Yeah.
I've been here long enough. My mother got hit by an ambulance. And she ultimately died from it. I prayed. She still died.
Yeah.
You can't tell me I didn't pray hard enough.
Right.
Because that is, God joins us in life, but I believe God has equipped us to change life.
Right.
So now when we pray, if you're not careful, we ask God to do all the stuff that we supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
God, remember them boys in jail. And watch over them, Lord. And the person that walked the street all night long, God, take care of them. What if God's saying to you,
Yeah.
remember them folk in jail?
Yeah.
Remember that person that walked the street all last night.
Yeah.
But again, we've been taught and showed the scripture in a way that relieves us of our responsibility to each other.
Yeah.
Again, Solomon says there is no rest for the oppressed or the oppressor. Because see, if you got your foot on my neck,
Right.
you got to exert effort. And you can't turn away from me now.
Right.
Because I'm constantly struggling to get up.
Right. You gotta be focused.
You got to be focused on me. And so that means that even for the oppressor,
Right.
you can't live and love the way you really want to.
Right.
Because if you turn your back on me, I'm getting the hell up off this ground.
Right.
Now, as long as I got strength, I'm going to keep on scuffling. But what happens is the oppressor says, I'll take my foot up. Now get this. I'll take my foot off your neck, but don't you get up off the ground. And that's where we are now. That those, some folk
That's deep.
some folk who are allowed to participate in this system,
That's deep.
that's the consequence.
That's
I'm going
deep.
to take my foot off your neck.
That's a hell of a metaphor right there.
But the agreement is
You better not get up.
you better not get up. As long as you stay down,
You okay?
you get to have that house.
Wow.
You get to have that car. You get to send your kids.
Right.
Now, I took my foot up off your neck.
Right. Right.
And that's where we are now, in that many of us have been co-opted and bought in
Yeah.
to this idea
Yeah.
that we've discovered something when all we did was we made a bad deal with our oppressor. I remember, I actually like the second roots better than the first roots.
Okay.
Have you looked at the second root?
I haven't seen the second one.
The second one with all the rappers and everything.
Yeah, I
That's
haven't
cool.
seen the second one.
But there's a part in there where the lady from the house is naming the slaves, and she names Kunta Toby. And so the poor white trash, not the slave owner, but the poor white trash, who that was the only thing he had was his gratefulness that he just ain't a nigga.
Right.
Tells him, say your name, boy. He says, my name is Kunta Kinte.
Right.
My father is so-and-so, and I'm of the so-and-so. And he starts whooping him. He whoops him to the ground. He says, say your name. And every time, he keeps repeating that he's Kunta. So Chicken George is over on the side. And finally, it's like he's going to kill him. And it's like he mumbles to him, say it. And finally, he says, my name is Toby. So the guy is going to make sure he's going to beat it into him. So as he runs over, he said, no, that nigga got to say it again.
Yeah.
That nigga got to say it again. You say it.
Yeah.
And he says, Toby. So he goes over to him after he gets up off, get that nigga up out of here.
Yeah.
And he leans down beside him like he's tending to him. And he whispers in his ear, your name is Kunta Kinte. You are such and such of the da-da-da-da. What will you do to survive for another day to come fight? What happens is you can come to the point of, just cause you whip my ass, don't change my mind.
Right. Yeah. This was a strategic decision. Yeah.
And if you see how he progresses,
Right.
he ain't gonna be constrained.
Right.
So the first thing they do, they go cut off his foot.
Right.
I mean, they cut off the front part of his foot. Then that nigga still gonna try to run.
Yeah.
Then they gotta come back and
Take the whole thing.
They take the whole thing because I need you in them fields.
Yeah.
That is the resiliency
Right.
of humanity.
Yeah.
That and I don't know, it's built into the creative process. That's why people, extreme pain causes people to black out.
Yeah.
That's why people who say that when they were in that horrific accident and they can tell you about seeing the windshield come in and bouncing all through the car, they don't feel it.
Yeah.
some kind of way,
Yeah.
resiliency is built in,
Yeah.
which again, I believe gets passed on
Yeah.
as it does in other species.
Yeah. It's in us. And that's how I carry that. That's how I carry that every day. That's how I carry that. I said that if my ancestors survived that, made it through that, and took whatever they had to take for me to be here,
It's in my blood.
I got no choice to be a beast.
So when folk want to celebrate, and again, I think it's misplaced, when they say, "Oh, you'll say what won't nobody else say." Well, just because won't nobody else say it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be said.
Right.
So because I said it, that don't make me shit.
Right.
Everybody need to be saying it.
Yeah.
I don't need to be celebrated because I'm saying it.
Right.
That doesn't mean
Right.
anything.
If anything, I want to open up the door so more people can say it.
Can say it. Because that resiliency, it's in my blood.
And you know, that's how it usually happens too, right? One person kneels, somebody else kneels, then, okay, the whole world kneels. Now it's okay. Now
India showed us that when they ran Britain out. When they finally refused to go back to the salt mines. And they line up one morning and they ain't going. British soldiers order them back in there. They're lined up across deep. They start taking them M1s.
Yeah.
And they were killing them and stabbing them.
Yeah, that's what come with that.
And that line right there gave up themselves for everybody else in the line.
Yep.
Britain said, "God damn, we ain't gonna have nobody. We got to kill all of them. We ain't gonna have nobody
To work these
fields, mines." And India has been punished in globalization ever since then.
Like Haiti.
Haiti, the only place where Negroes said, "Not right here.
Right, not today.
I
Not
won't
anymore.
have shit
Right.
if I won't have freedom." And you see how
Yep.
globalization, which is still white dominated, you see the weird bedfellows of Putin and Trump. And these people, they attach to the same thing.
Yeah.
And so they punish them.
Yeah.
The whole continent of Africa
Yeah.
has been punished in that they get exploited.
Yep.
And they taught us that shit.
Yeah. You gotta think about it. They taught us to hate blackness. We carry around anti-blackness, right? And that's that unlearning and unconditioning we have to do, right? It's not taught. It's easy to say a white person is anti-black, but it's a whole nother thing to say, nigga, I might be anti-black, and as a black person, then what does that mean? How do I deal with that? That's deep, and that's a question that, you know, many of us don't want. We don't want to answer that. Or you step on my shoe, I might go shoot up your whole house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And come back, spin back around,
Yeah.
do it again, just to make sure, double down on it, you know. But I don't have that same energy with my oppressor or oppressive system.
Because we have acquiesced. And subconsciously,
Yeah.
we have generationally acquiesced
Yeah.
to the isness. And as first people,
Yeah.
we forget we hold the altness.
Yeah.
There's enough for everybody. But we've been taught that your value is caught up in your stuff,
Yeah.
not up in the, like Ivy. His funeral is next Wednesday. People gonna show up because they loved him. He ain't rich. King is remembered not because he was rich.
Right.
His wife says clearly he never talked to her when he decided to get that $54,000 to the movement that he got for the Nobel Peace Prize, and he got 4 kids at home.
Right.
What drives somebody to do that?
The work, the passion.
But people still call his name. again, from my Africanness, they said that people never really die when you call their name. Because when you call their name, anybody connected by blood has their essence anyway.
Right. You part of that person
You're
anyway.
part of that. And then I believe, just as it is in Christendom, just as it is in Judaism, that there are these witnesses.
Yeah.
That there are those who are cheering me on.
Right.
So that when I call their name, they
Right.
never die. That's why, I mean, look at, take the Vanderbilts and the Rothschilds, all these names that amassed huge stockpiles.
Right.
If it wasn't for the buildings that bear their name. But here we are, even before King Day.
Yeah.
You don't let folk like King get away.
Right.
Because their impact is beyond this system.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so the black church, even now, after or even what the pandemic is, we want to go back to what we was doing.
Right.
Trying to get people to come on back to church
Yeah.
and tying your relationship to God with you being in church.
Right.
And that's not so. It's how you live with your fellow man. Jesus made it real plain and simple. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And the second one is just like it. Love your neighbor
Right.
as yourself. That was too simple for every damn
Yeah.
body. Because see, I can't have past appreciation.
Right.
I can't get the prophet's blessing. I can't be a millionaire.
Right. Right.
I can't be a millionaire. I can't do my thing.
Yeah. Nah. Not if I want to, treat my neighbor like I treat myself. Nah. It's one more big topic I want to hit on, and then I'm gonna have you close us out, like Sunday service. We just had the officers in Memphis, around policemen, kill a young man. We ain't even seen the footage yet. And I don't even know personally if I don't even want to watch the footage. But it had to be horrific for them to, before anything is even released, to fire those officers immediately and then charge them with first-degree murder. That's before we even seen anything. Usually, we have to see it and then it has to be an uproar for those type of actions to happen. How can we change the way we are being policed? I don't know if police is ever getting abolished anytime soon, the current system of policing, but clearly it needs to be some type of alternative way of how police are policing in communities, specifically black and brown communities, but nationwide. They're perpetuating too much harm. They've done so historically, and it seems like policing is just, you hear this reimagined police. I don't know who imagining the reimagining, but it's not looking different. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm often have claims lodged against me that I don't like police.
Right.
That's not true. It's untenable for me to accept bad policing. Unfortunately, we as a society have to decide how we live together. And unfortunately, there are those among us that it makes sense that they can no longer be among us. Those are the choices.
Right.
Now, policing, like this Memphis situation, they're the victims of the system. Well, I'm not trying to vilify them. They need to pay with the fullness.
Right.
But they were taught how to police.
Right.
Now, what's missing from the conversation is the FOP that always shows up to say, it comes off like we're protecting the police, but they say that they're guaranteeing their due process.
Right.
I've not seen nor heard from the FOP in Memphis.
Yeah.
The DA comes out and makes the statement he makes.
Right.
That doesn't happen when the assailant is white.
Right.
These boys are going to get long time.
Oh, yeah.
But here in Nashville, we have a last minute deal on a person who ends up not even doing a year in jail.
Yeah, he free right now.
Oh yeah, he free. But if you notice the difference now, we watched that tape.
Yeah.
We watched that tape. You said that this random white Impala was the one that ran away from you, and you don't even have a license tag, but it was the one that ran away from you out in Antioch. That now's over in Northwest Nashville,
Right.
and that's them, and you pull up and say, hey,
Right.
and you're so assured that you shoot 4 times
Yeah.
and you kill a person, and now you get 10 months. So there's going to be this hypocrisy even in this. But again, I agree with you. To me, we talk about community policing. But in actuality, it's what the police does to the community. We know what we need to be safe.
Right. And we all want to be.
And we all
wanna
want to be
want,
safe.
Want safety. Yep.
But the system has to take responsibility for what it contributes to it.
Right.
Go anywhere in the world where there's abject poverty,
Right.
the first cousins of poverty always there.
Yeah.
Poor health outcomes, food threatened, housing threatened, low low educational achievement,
Low employment.
low employment. All this goes
Right.
with poverty. So if you're not going to make real strides toward addressing the poverty that capitalism creates,
Right.
if you look at it in systems theory, which I'm a systems theorist, our system produces something.
Right.
And in that production, it expends energy. So there's always waste that the system creates.
Right.
That's what our system creates, is that waste. But we want to act like we're not responsible for that.
Right.
But we are. And so when you talk about policing, the history of policing in this country, what that means. And I've talked with so many black officers who feel that they're caught in the middle.
Yeah.
That
Definitely.
they don't enjoy the thin blue line like others.
Right.
And they always feel that they're sus when they're in the black community.
Yeah.
But then they just like, I think everybody is called to something.
Yeah.
I remember growing up as kids, you knew whether you wanted to be the cop or the robber,
Right.
the cowboy or the engine.
Right.
And even as we grow up, as grown men, we're either the cop or the robber,
Right.
we're the cowboy or the Indian.
Right.
And so many of them come to those jobs. And again, I have no problem saying this. The vast majority of police officers, I believe it's a calling. But there's a
Compromised by that system.
right, because there's a Latin phrase called tabula rasa, which means clean slate.
Right.
They just got a sense.
Yeah.
They just got a sense that, and when you read what some of them say about why they want to be, to help the community.
Yeah.
I just always, blah, 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 blah. But then their slate that's written on often conflicts their spirit.
Yeah.
And they're required to work in a situation where they have a conflicted spirit, because that's not what they wanted to do.
Right.
That ain't what they signed up to do.
Right.
But this is how you got to do this if you're going to stay here. And there's consequences.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you're not loyal,
It's a good old boys club.
Because, you know,
It's a fraternity.
oh yeah, because, I mean, here even in our city, out of those, I don't know, 1,500 police officers, chief makes about 240, 245. And you can go all the way down to them captains. They come in at 110, 120.
Yeah.
So you got 300, 400
Right.
people that make good money.
Yeah.
But depending on how you come in as a cadet will determine whether or not you get to taste some of that upper middle class
Right.
life.
So you gotta play ball if you want to.
If you want to. And until we understand interdisciplinary, which again we can't even talk about intersectionality no more.
Right.
But the police ought not want to provide all the training.
Yeah.
The police ought not want to do the implicit bias training. The police ought not want to do the legal training.
Right.
The police ought not want to do this because you don't create a critical thinker
Right.
who can show up in a moment, because they are in a hazardous job.
Right.
If I was a police, I probably would shoot and ask questions later, just out of my fear.
Right.
I don't have,
Right.
I don't think I have the right,
Right.
but they put their life in danger every day. And they deserve to go home too.
Right.
And many of them went to college just to qualify to be
Police officer.
a police officer. But the system that they're pushed in
Right.
requires them to operate in a way that's contrary to their spirit. So I believe the community has to keep demanding,
Right.
has to keep showing up,
Right.
and has to keep telling them this is what we want.
Right.
This is what we want you to do for us. Like one of the things now that I don't even understand it, and they spend 60, 65 hours here in Nashville teaching them about wreck and wreck investigations and all that. They don't even go out to wrecks no more,
No.
which means it could have been your fault, but you would never get a ticket now.
Right.
So now I got to fight with my insurance, and they gonna say, well, we can't tell who it was.
Yeah, you gotta go through the hub or whatever they got now that you gotta do online. Yeah.
Somebody break in my house and steal everything, whatever, they may not come out.
Right.
They say, here's a number.
Yep.
And so they do more responding to crime
Then preventing.
than they do preventing.
Yeah, for sure.
And so,
Yeah.
so,
For sure.
so again, we have to keep demanding what it is that we want as it relates to our public safety, our communal safety.
Right.
And we just can't take no for an answer.
Right.
And hopefully there are folk who, like, I'm not a abolitionist, but as I tell abolitionists, which I'm in proximity
Right.
and even in relationship with, this a long ass bus ride.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long time before I ring the bell
Right.
to get off the bus and you go on toward abolition. Chances are the bus still gonna be running
Yeah.
when both of us leave here.
Yeah.
But our desires before you get to abolition are the same.
Yep.
Accountability, transparency, trust.
Yep.
I believe, even here in Nashville, that there needs to be a desire from the police department to spend some of the $200 and almost $50 million that they get to begin programs in schools for middle schoolers who are afraid to say, I want to be a police officer. We need to start identifying them now.
Yeah.
So many of the officers that we have now are not from here,
Right.
and they don't even choose to live here.
Right. No.
So they treat this like when they go to work, they come into the jungle.
Right. Right. Davie, Tuck, this has been. I hope you've enjoyed this.
Man, I have.
I hope you've enjoyed this. I know your phone probably been going crazy.
Been blowing up.
And so, I'm gonna let you close this out, cause one, we gotta do a part 2. you owe me a part 2.
Well, you got me.
And look, we gotta do a part 2, but I just want you to give us one last statement to go home with. If you had to say anything to people that's watching and listening, to really send it home on those who may want to just be better and do better for community, and just on their journey, wherever they may be, in doing that, lead them with something that they can take home with.
What are we willing to risk for real change?
What are we willing to risk for real
For
change?
real change. What are you willing to put on the line to make life better, maybe not for you, but for the yet unborn? What are you willing to forego as rewards so that instead of you getting a loaf of bread, a group of people get a piece of bread? What are we really willing to, as you say here, change yourself? And then as I say that, if you change yourself, your presence in the community changes the community because of the change you've made in yourself. And if enough folk in the community change, then the world in which the community that it is changes.
That's my mantra. Change yourself, change your world, change your community. Change yourself, change your community, change your world.
It changes.
Yep.
Which again, don't miss what life's supposed to give us.
Right.
And that's love, that's legacy, that even in the midst of all this fighting, I've raised 2 wonderful sons, been married to a woman going on 32 years. If God called me today, my life has been one hell of a ride. And it won't, and we have to create our own matrix for success.
Right.
It can't be big bank accounts, big houses, and big cars.
Right.
That can't be it. What is your matrix of success?
Right.
Is it to compete in this?
Right.
Or is it to create a alternative reality? One where everybody can get health care. Everybody is in a safe community.
Right.
Everybody get a fair shot.
Right.
I mean, you can act, do whatever, but until we ask ourselves those deep dish questions, we're gonna keep on tooling along, trying to mix up shit that ain't supposed to go together.
Right.
Trying to be, there is no such thing. Look, the internet ain't real. That ain't a real place.
Right.
There is no such thing as a social media organizer.
Yeah.
Organizing, I mean, you can make that and you can make your legitimation on your clicks and your likes and whatever. But if you're not gonna go be with the people,
boots on the ground.
if you're not gonna go and fight where the policies are made, you can tweet, Instagram, talk, and do everything you want to, and you can even convince yourself and others like you that y'all something y'all ain't. Some work will never change, and caring for humanity requires human contact.
Davie Tucker, it's been a pleasure.